Warriors of the Silent Revolution, welcome back to the channel where the weak are remade into the ruthless. I once watched a man, my closest friend, systematically dismantle himself on the altar of being the good guy. He was a fountain of indiscriminate mercy, giving his essence, his precious finite time, and his unwavering forgiveness to a caste of takers who wouldn't spend a second of their own peace for him. People whose memories were too cheap to even recall his name. 3 years, a lifetime of self-immolation, passed before I saw him again, and the broken man was gone, replaced by an unsettling, steel-cold certainty. His eyes held a stillness that commanded, not asked, for respect. And the sentence he offered me, a truth forged in the crucible of his own destruction, was this: the world didn't change. I did. I stopped being easy to break. That pronouncement is the axis upon which power turns, because it wasn't just his story. It is the unspoken, inevitable story of every man who has bled for the ungrateful, including yours. Right now, you are operating with two conflicting personalities, two digital images of yourself warring for control of your life. The first, version 1, is the exhausting pleader, the one who constantly over-explains his actions, the one who rushes to apologize for existing, the one who tolerates the intolerable, clinging to the naive, suicidal hope that if he just bends over backwards one more time, people will finally see his goodness, finally respect him, finally reciprocate his boundless love. You chase validation, believing that the more you pour out your soul, the more visible your value becomes. Yet in a cruel twist of dark psychology, the opposite is true. The more you give, the less they need to see your worth, and thus the less they value it. Then there is version 2, the sovereign self, the silent one, the certain one, the one who has traded explanation for consequence. This version doesn't engage in the humiliating tug-of-war of begging, doesn't argue against cheap slights, and certainly doesn't chase anything that willingly walks away. It simply, cleanly, and without a single shred of guilt or noise, removes its presence and its energy. You have been fatally compromised by living too long as version 1, and its softness is a cancer on your potential. It has made you perpetually soft where you needed the surgical precision of sharpness, and tragically kind where cold, calculated strategy was required. Niccolo Machiavelli, the ultimate architect of applied power, wrote with chilling clarity that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But understand this: he was not a prophet of mindless cruelty. He was the cartographer of control, teaching you the precise, critical moment when you must stop being the person whose structural integrity breaks for the sake of others' comfort. Today, we execute the psychological coup d'etat, awakening version 2, the ruthless sovereign Machiavelli spoke of, the man whose presence people sense but can never, ever manipulate. We must embrace the 8 immutable shifts that separate these two versions of existence, understanding that each shift is not a mere suggestion, but a demand that requires you to sacrifice a piece of your old, weak identity, a burning, necessary immolation of everything you once thought defined you as a good person. But if you endure this intellectual fire, you will emerge unrecognizable, a ghost to the self you were before, ceasing the futile, desperate search for peace from external sources and instead forging it internally, becoming a generator of your own calm, learning the ultimate chilling power of being untouchable. Because the truth is self-evident, this world is designed to break you unless you willingly become ruthless. Before we dive into the first shift, internalize the gravity of this moment and drop this vow into the comments below. I will not break again. Number 1. Stop giving yourself to the ungrateful, the conservation of power. The initial, non-negotiable step into the realm of ruthlessness begins with a fatal realization. Your true weakness was never the size of your heart, but the reckless, self-destructive, and often narcissistic locations where you chose to place it. You have been hemorrhaging your vital energy, your time, and your empathy into emotional vampires, people who are more than happy to feed off your inner light, but who have never once considered reciprocating that energy. You perpetually rationalize your generosity, maintaining a cycle of helping, of explaining, of forgiving, living in a suspended state of pathetic hope that maybe, just maybe, if you give them one more chance, they will finally wake up and see the blinding brilliance of your self-sacrificing worth. But they will not. The fundamental reason is a cold principle of the psychology of power. Anything that is freely, abundantly, and predictably given is subconsciously devalued. People instinctively, without conscious thought, equate unearned generosity with a profound sense of inferiority. They operate under the assumption that if you are giving so easily, it is not a sign of your strength, but a sign of your overwhelming need to be liked, to be validated, or to be kept around. And the moment a predator senses your emotional need, they have gained control. This is the true birthplace of weakness. It doesn't stem from failing in a business venture or a physical defeat, but from a fatal emotional dependency on others, a dependence that you have successfully disguised from yourself as mere kindness. Machiavelli, in his relentless pursuit of realism, stated, "Men are quicker to offend one who is loved than one who is feared." The ungrateful, the emotional opportunists exploit your goodness with surgical precision precisely because they possess zero fear of truly losing you. They have been taught by your own behavior that you are the emotional equivalent of a fixed satellite, a constant that will stay, that will forgive, and that will perpetually rationalize their appalling behavior with flimsy, self-deluding excuses like, "They're just going through something and I need to be there for them." This is not the noble art of compassion. It is the destructive comfort of self-delusion. The bitter pill you must swallow is this: people do not remember your kindness. They remember the sting of pain. They do not respect your flowery explanations. They respect undeniable consequences. The more predictable, the more available, the more instantaneous your mercy becomes, the more you become psychologically invisible to them. Every single instance you tolerated their disrespect was a training session, educating them to perceive you as a disposable commodity. Every desperate attempt you made to explain your worth was a self-inflicted wound, confirming that you felt the need to prove it in the first place. This is the unspoken, terrifying psychology behind why the good are broken first. The world is not destroying you because you are kind. It is destroying you because you have committed the fatal error of confusing kindness with being harmless. The ungrateful are, in their true psychological form, predators. They do not hunt your physical body. They hunt your guilt. They will shame you. They will make you feel morally reprehensible for the simple, self-preserving act of protecting yourself. They are masters of emotional jujitsu, twisting your precious empathy into a sharpened weapon and stabbing you with it. Therefore, you must obliterate the deeply ingrained, irrational belief that you owe anyone your loyalty merely because you once chose to care for them. Your care, your time, your emotional presence is not a fundamental human right for others. It is a privilege. You must allocate this privilege exclusively to those who have demonstrably earned it through consistent, unwavering respect. Every other person should feel the immediate, chilling sharpness of your absolute absence. Detachment is your new fortress. Indifference is your silent, elegant revenge. Machiavelli, observing the cold reality of human nature, warned us, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous." He was giving you a timeless, life-saving warning. Never grant power to the ungrateful because they will inevitably use that power to weaken you. You must forcibly unlearn the fairy tale that merely being good will somehow magically save you from the machinations of others. Goodness, when left unchecked and undefended by boundaries, is nothing less than a death sentence. Ruthlessness is not an act of wanton cruelty. It is an act of correction. It is the clinical moment you cease rewarding profound betrayal with privileged access to your life. The minute you stop answering every single call, the second you stop forgiving every self-serving lie, the moment you cease explaining your silence or your decisions, the ungrateful will, for the first time, experience panic. They realize with dawning horror that they can no longer feed off your dependable, predictable emotional reactions. This is the precise psychological moment when the balance of power decisively shifts. You become the singular, controlling entity who decides who receives the priceless commodity of your attention, and who simply fades into a state of utter irrelevance. The world, in its deepest, most brutal truth, belongs solely to those who conserve their finite energy with the precision and lethal intent of a weapon, not to those who frivolously waste it like a childish wish. Every single drop of strength, every ounce of motivation you pour into the wrong, parasitic people is power that you are actively stealing from your future self. Withdraw it, hoard it, rebuild it. Let them be consumed by the mystery of what happened to your former accommodating warmth. Tell them in your silence that it froze the day you finally had the courage to truly see the cold, undeniable truth. Some people, you must accept, deserve the psychological distance of your absence more than they will ever deserve the precious devotion of your presence. Now, affirm your new operational parameters and drop this declaration into the comments. My kindness has limits. Number 2. Turn pain into power. The Alchemist's strategy. Pain is the universe's purest, most unyielding teacher, because unlike human voices, it never, ever lies. It doesn't waste time flattering your fragile ego. It cares nothing for your catalog of excuses. Instead, it performs a radical psychological exposure, stripping away every layer of weakness inside you until only the genuine, unvarnished you remains. The gulf separating the permanently broken from the perpetually powerful is not measured by the sheer volume of suffering they have endured. It is measured by the strategic, lethal use they made of that suffering. The weak are utterly consumed. They drown in their pain because their fundamental psychological operating system is still searching for a cosmic sense of fairness. They cling to the delusional, pathetic belief that the world owes them healing, a comfortable closure, or a refund for their suffering. But the truly ruthless mind operates with a cold, clear-eyed acceptance of the truth. Pain is currency. You are given a stark Machiavellian choice. You can either spend that currency to strategically build an unbreakable version of yourself, or you can waste it through the cheap, impotent comfort of complaining and self-pity. The few, the silent few who actually rise from destruction are not merely lucky. They are profoundly, calculatingly strategic. When confronted with betrayal, with gut-wrenching heartbreak, or with crushing failure, their question is never the weak man's lament, "Why me?" Instead, their entire being immediately asks the power-defining question, "What is this suffering teaching me right now about control?" Machiavelli, in his genius, instructed us to never waste the opportunity offered by a good crisis. Every single moment of deep existential suffering is a covert, high-stakes opportunity to fundamentally evolve into a being who is psychologically untouchable. Pain is not a judgment or a punishment. It is invaluable information. It tells you the precise location of your weaknesses, the exact fault lines in your character that need fortification. Every betrayal is a spotlight on the person you trusted too easily. Every rejection is a measurement of where you mistakenly placed your self-worth. Every profound loss exposes the crippling illusion of permanence you clung to. When you shift your gaze to view pain through this analytical, unsentimental lens, It immediately ceases to be a paralyzing wound and instantly transforms into a strategic, leverageable weapon. You begin to ruthlessly use the experience of pain to sharpen the clarity of your mind rather than allowing it to be the poison that destroys it. The darkest, most profound psychology of transformation lies in this deliberate, conscious act of transmuting suffering into cold, effective strategy. The masses instinctively cry because they are seeking to feel better. The strong deliberately reflect in silence because they are seeking to become stronger. When they are injured, they do not pathetically chase a neat, comfortable closure from the person who hurt them. Instead, they immediately begin to create power. They analyze their enemies instead of wasting energy on hating them. They dissect their mistakes with ruthless honesty instead of escaping into denial. They forge every heartbreak into an unbreakable emotional discipline, and they convert every single disappointment into laser-like focus. This, precisely, is the essence of Machiavellian resilience: to take the world's inherent cruelty and use it as high-octane fuel, not as the chains that bind you. Pain is the forge where dominance is born. When life shatters you, it is doing you a perverse favor, showing you, without the mask of your comfortable illusions, exactly who you are at your core. You must stop running from it. Sit with it. Feel every agonizing flicker of that fire, because once you have survived your own deepest suffering, you have achieved an irreversible freedom. No one, ever again, can control you through the external mechanism of fear. The single moment you cease to fear the experience of pain is the moment you become psychologically unpredictable, and unpredictability is the highest form of power. When cheap manipulators attempt to control you through guilt or rejection, their levers will snap because you have already faced worse conditions within your own soul and you have survived them. Machiavelli believed that a wise man, a true strategist, derives infinitely more valuable knowledge from profound misfortune than he ever could from the numbing comfort of safety. This is because pain is the ultimate activator of awareness. It forces a rapid, unsentimental evolution. It brutally silences illusion. You begin to see people not through the lens of who you desperately wished they would be, but through the cold, stark reality of who they are. You naturally begin to choose the cool, strategic calculus of logic over the volatile, compromising demands of emotion. The more you are forced to endure, the less instinctively reactive you become. You begin to move through the world with the unshakable composure of someone who has already been through the refining fire and lived to tell the tale. That energy is a palpable force that commands respect because it radiates a quiet, intrinsic danger. People feel it the moment you enter a space. The powerful aura of a man who has successfully transmuted every past wound into a profound, actionable wisdom. You no longer carry your scars with a pathetic, victimized shame. You wear them as an impenetrable armor. Your silence becomes heavy, meaningful, and your gaze becomes unyieldingly steady. That is the moment you cross the definitive psychological line. You transition from being a recipient shaped by external pain to a sovereign entity shaping the world around you through the sheer force of your self-mastery. The very next time life inflicts a wound, do not waste a single second cursing the universe. Study it. Ask yourself with cold, scientific detachment, what immediate, hidden advantage is contained within this agonizing event? Because every moment of agony, without exception, carries a seed of future dominance, provided you are ruthless enough to harvest and utilize it. Drop the affirmation that solidifies this alchemical truth. My pain builds power. Number 3, kill the need to be understood, the weapon of ambiguity. The desperate, childish hunger to be understood is the most insidious psychological trap that keeps the minds of potentially powerful men chained to a crushing mediocrity. You spend years of your finite life perpetually explaining yourself, hoping against all empirical evidence that people will finally truly see the nobility of your intentions, the pure, untarnished goodness of your heart, the unshakable truth of your character. But here is the harshest, most necessary reality you must accept. Most people do not actually care to understand you. They only care to successfully categorize you. They are not listening with the intent to comprehend your complexity. They are listening, primarily, to find your emotional, strategic weakness. The more words you expend in explanation, the more you are freely surrendering confidential information that can and will be leveraged against you. In the realm of dark psychology, understanding a person is the precursor to control. Once people believe they fully understand your motives, your psychological triggers, and your aspirations, they possess the complete blueprint for your manipulation. This is precisely why the Ruthless maintain a strategic, impenetrable silence. They deliberately allow others to guess, to project their own internal fears and desires, to assume and to misinterpret. And it is within this potent psychological fog of confusion that the powerful remain fundamentally untouchable. Machiavelli made it crystal clear. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command, and a critical component of command is the absolute refusal to over-explain. Explaining is, at its root, a defensive act. It reveals, without uttering the words, that you are still operating from a place of seeking external validation. True power has no need to justify its existence. It simply, silently is. The most intimidating people you will ever encounter are those who simply do not explain why they act, why they feel, or why they have suddenly, cleanly disappeared from your orbit. Their silence is a powerful psychological generator of tension. That tension, once established and held, is what ultimately generates profound respect. The weak beg desperately to be seen. The strong make the conscious, ruthless choice to be misunderstood. You must internalize the powerful truth that the second you stop defending your choices, you transform your public image into one of utter unpredictability. And unpredictability is the twin of fear. People are inherently incapable of controlling what they cannot successfully read. This is the historical reason why every successful ruler, every legendary leader, and every master strategist meticulously cultivated the deadly art of ambiguity. They spoke substantially less than the vast knowledge they possessed, and they acted with a force and finality that was always disproportionate to their explanations. This is the model you must adopt. Every time you rush, out of habit, to explain your internal intentions or your reasons, you are carelessly giving away the precise blueprint of your entire emotional infrastructure. You are, in effect, teaching your audience how to successfully disarm you. The most dangerous psychological trap of transparency is that it serves as an open invitation for dissection, and dissection, applied to the magic of power, is always lethal. Machiavelli, observing this, wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The wise man halts the process of justifying himself early, before the damage is done, while the fool keeps talking until his entire vulnerability is exposed. You owe no one in your life clarity regarding your difficult choices. You owe no one an explanation for your distance, your sudden silence, your non-negotiable standards, or your necessary personal change. Let them misunderstand. Let them assume you have become cold, arrogantly self-absorbed, or emotionally detached. Every single false, cheap label they attempt to assign to you is merely an additional, unexpected layer to your psychological armor. The absolute moment you stop attempting to correct their shallow, predictable assumptions, you instantly regain all of your lost control. This is because genuine control exists and thrives in the rigorous application of restraint. Silence is not a passive indication of weakness. It is, in the hands of the wise, an actively weaponized composure. It makes others profoundly nervous because they have no data points to successfully predict your immediate next move. And uncertainty, sustained over time, is the mother of caution. That is fundamentally psychological dominance. Consider the most powerful, most respected people you have ever encountered or read about. They were never the loudest voices. They were the most composed. Their mere presence did not beg for attention. It instantly commanded it. Not because they were shouting, but because they had zero psychological need to shout. Every single word they strategically withheld spoke with infinitely more authority than 1,000 desperate justifications. You must ruthlessly cultivate this singular kind of magnetic, mysterious presence. Become a mystery that no one, no matter how clever, can fully grasp. Become a destructive force, a storm that gives no advance warning of its devastating arrival. When someone attempts to bait or provoke you into a humiliating emotional reaction, let the crushing weight of your total silence utterly suffocate their ego. When someone foolishly misjudges your character or your motives, simply allow them to sit, festering in the self-imposed prison of their own assumptions. The truth is your most lethal weapon. Do not cheapen its value by wasting it in a frantic, exhausting effort to prove your innocence to those who have already judged you. Those who possess the need to understand you, in the sense of total transparency, do not ultimately deserve the access to you that they seek. Those who genuinely, unconditionally value your worth will never ever require an explanation for your choices. Power is not the process of convincing every skeptical observer of your virtue. Power is the quiet, internal process of becoming so profoundly self-assured that their confusion, their misjudgment, or their validation ceases to hold any discernible weight in your world. The moment you shed the psychological burden of needing to be understood by the masses is the moment you finally, truly begin to understand the formidable nature of yourself. Own your new, terrifying composure and drop this affirmation into the comments. My silence speaks power. Number 4. Detach. Don't beg. The authority of absence. To beg, whether it is for another's attention, their affection, or the pathetic illusion of closure, is the absolute, quickest path for a powerful mind to become enslaved. The harder you desperately chase what has already made the choice to walk away, the more you shrink in the critical, evaluating eyes of those who never, not for a moment, intended to value your worth. Detachment is not an indicator of coldness. It is a clinical demonstration of profound control. It is the meticulously refined skill of possessing the strength to cleanly walk away from anything that represents an existential threat to your unassailable self-respect, regardless of how much your emotional self clings to the desire to keep it. Most people make the amateur mistake of confusing deep attachment with true loyalty, when in reality they are two opposing psychological forces. Loyalty is an immense strength. Attachment is a crippling, pathological dependence. The world's psychological conditioning has fooled you into believing that fighting a humiliating, losing battle for people is irrefutable proof of your care. But in the unforgiving landscape of dark psychology, the one who initiates the chase is the one who invariably loses all leverage and power. The humiliating act of begging, whether it's for their time, their affection, or their attention, acts as an aggressive broadcast of your profound weakness, and weakness in this cold world is an open invitation for total exploitation. Machiavelli once decreed, "The one who is not master of himself cannot be master of others." When your raw, unfiltered emotions become your sole ruler, you have rendered yourself maximally easy to control. The truly ruthless detach not because they are devoid of human emotion, but because they have made a binding vow to refuse to be owned by the chaotic whims of those emotions. When a person initiates a psychological withdrawal, the ruthless do not argue, beg, or engage in humiliating explanation. They simply observe. When they are deliberately disrespected, they do not plead their case or rationalize. They simply vanish. In this new psychological warfare, their silence is the sharpest sword, and their unannounced absence is the clear, unforgettable message. In a world whose social structure is built on a complex, manipulative foundation of emotional manipulation, detachment is the ultimate, terrifying rebellion. It actively petrifies manipulators because it instantly and permanently destroys their power source, your predictable reaction. Once you cease to react, you instantly become unreadable, and when you are unreadable, you become subtly, fundamentally feared. The true, secret weapon of the powerful is not a spectacular display of rage. It is the clinical, surgical application of indifference. Indifference burns with a colder, more terrifying flame than any superficial hatred, and possesses a longevity that far outlasts any transient love. When people lose the ability to reliably predict your response, they have irrevocably lost their grip on your mind. That is the definitive, power-shifting moment when your entire emotional energy begins to be conserved and repositioned. You immediately stop being the predictable one who pathetically waits, and you become the one who unilaterally decides the terms of engagement. The same individuals who once carelessly ignored your existence will now, with dawning panic, begin to notice your silence, because silence coming from a person who was once predictably reactive is a sound louder than any full-scale confrontation. Detachment grants you a strange, unique form of authority, the authority to walk away from any unfolding chaos with your internal peace completely intact. Machiavelli was profoundly convinced that the self-mastery of one's emotions was the non-negotiable bedrock for every successful ruler, asserting that those who cannot successfully detach are permanently doomed to be controlled by those who have mastered the skill. He understood that the masses are driven by two main, governing impulses, either by love or by fear. If you can successfully conquer and master your own destructive attachment, you will be the one who controls the levers of both. The ruthless mind understands that not every person deserves the unrestricted privilege of access to your life. Not every single fleeting emotion deserves to be expressed and broadcast, and not every single relationship, once broken, deserves a pathetically orchestrated revival. Your mandate is to learn the disciplined art of withdrawing your energy without making an announcement, to cleanly and quietly close doors that need to be sealed, and to make your physical and emotional distance a felt, unmistakable psychological punishment. This is psychological warfare, executed at its most refined, elegant, and lethal level. The more successfully you detach, the more absolute power you instantly reclaim. You begin the exhilarating, terrifying process of realizing that your internal peace is not found in a vulnerable connection to another person, but exclusively found in the fortress of your own internal control. True, unshakable strength is revealed when you possess the capacity to love a person deeply, yet you still walk away the absolute moment they pose a fundamental threat to your self-respect. Detachment is not a psychological state of not caring. It is the ultimate necessary act of caring correctly, caring about your sovereign self first. Because the moment you stop begging for external validation, you instantly stop the internal bleeding of your self-worth. And when you stop bleeding, there is nothing left for the psychological predators to feed on, ever again. Drop the affirmation that seals this declaration of war against self-betrayal. I choose peace over people. Number 5. Boundaries are your armor, the fortress of self-respect. Boundaries are not merely polite suggestions. They are the immutable, invisible, fortified walls that structurally separate the organized reality of personal power from the encroaching, destructive chaos of the external world. Without these walls, your life remains an open, undefended field where anyone can trespass, take what precious resources they desire, and leave you emotionally depleted and empty. You have been tragically conditioned by a soft, sentimental society to believe that the assertive, definitive act of saying no is inherently selfish, that the process of setting firm limits makes you fundamentally unkind. But the truth, the core reality, is that the absence of clearly defined boundaries is an act of profound self-betrayal. Every single time you choose to tolerate blatant disrespect, every instance you offer forgiveness without first establishing a concrete consequence, every moment you permit people to willfully cross your established lines in a desperate attempt to maintain a fragile, false peace, you are systematically surrendering essential pieces of your self-worth. Weak men and women routinely confuse a pathetic, groveling tolerance with genuine internal strength. The ruthless know the difference with chilling clarity. They understand, fundamentally, that a heart that is not fully encased in protective armor is a permanent, stationary target. Machiavelli, commenting on the political necessity of self-reliance, wrote, "A prince who is not wise himself cannot be well advised." The profound meaning here is simple and universally applicable. If you possess neither the wisdom nor the will to rigorously guard yourself, no one else will ever do it for you. The world does not inherently honor openness or vulnerability. It is genetically predisposed to exploit it. The people who smile at your kindness today are already planning to strategically leverage your predictable forgiveness tomorrow. This is not cynicism. It is merely the predictable, cold nature of unchecked human desire. People will perpetually test the limits that you, yourself, refuse to enforce with disciplined consistency. Boundaries are not merely exclusionary walls designed to keep people permanently out. They are the secure, guarded gates that are specifically designed to protect the sacred, non-negotiable core inside you. They are not an act of cruelty. They are an act of absolute clarity. And clarity, delivered without apology, is the one thing that truly terrifies manipulators because it instantly removes all of their leverage. In dark psychology, boundaries are, in fact, powerful weapons of control. The person in any relationship who is the most capable of enforcing and maintaining them is the person who ultimately dictates the non-negotiable terms of that relationship. When you are able to calmly, definitively say no without any crippling feelings of guilt, you are communicating a profound, intrinsic dominance. When you enforce a total cutoff of access following a betrayal, you are announcing with an authority louder than words that your inherent worth is absolutely non-negotiable. The powerful do not waste time or energy in futile arguments about who deserves respect. They demonstrate it through the controlled, strategic application of distance. Forgiveness that is not accompanied by any lasting consequences is not virtue. It is an act of utter submission. Mercy that lacks a disciplined structure is a guaranteed invitation to future chaos. The transformative moment you cease to reward a person's bad behavior with the unearned gift of your presence is the moment you begin to command a respectful silence from the same individuals who once disrespected you with impunity. The fearful and the weak will predictably label this necessary self-command as arrogance, or they will dismiss it as an inflated ego. But the truly wise will instantly recognize it for what it is, the highest form of self-command. Machiavelli offered another profound insight. He who allows himself to be deceived is deserving of deception. You are, in every interaction, teaching people precisely how they are permitted to treat you by the exact limits of what you are willing to tolerate. The decisive moment you begin to guard your psychological and physical space with the impenetrable seriousness of a fortress, the parasites will instantly vanish, the draining noise will immediately fade, and your precious hard-won peace will return. This is the clarity that allows you to finally see who truly values you for your intrinsic self. They are the ones who respect your established rules instead of silently resenting them. Boundaries act as a high-powered filter. They effortlessly attract the highest quality of people while simultaneously repelling the corruption of the opportunistic. They cleanly filter the authentically loyal from the purely opportunistic, the genuine from the manipulative. They ensure that your presence in their lives is perceived as something that must be earned, not something that is carelessly and always available. To navigate the world without clearly defined boundaries is to choose to live without personal dignity. To live with them is to command your world with an undeniable, quiet authority. The ruthless operate with the clear understanding that kindness that lacks a firm, defensive structure is an invitation to total destruction. Therefore, they build their walls not from a place of fear, but from a profound place of unsentimental wisdom. The ultimate psychological goal is not to be universally liked by everyone. The goal is to be profoundly respected. Remember this as your foundational maxim. Every single boundary you successfully set is a non-negotiable declaration. This is the sacred location where my peace begins. And those individuals who truly, genuinely value your existence will never, ever ask you to lower your armor for their convenience. They will stand outside the fortress with honor and patience. Now, internalize your new defensive posture and drop this affirmation into the comments. My boundaries protect me. Number 6. Master the art of silence. The control of the unspoken silence is the single most formidable, strategically effective weapon that the powerful utilize when the noise of empty words has lost all of its psychological value. The overwhelming majority of people are existentially terrified of silence because it immediately and brutally exposes their profound lack of internal control. They compulsively speak simply to fill the air, to desperately try to prove a false sense of confidence, and to frantically seek external validation through a cacophony of noise. But every single unnecessary word that carelessly leaves your mouth is immediately transformed into free ammunition for someone else's eventual manipulation. The wise, the strategists, possess an unshakable understanding. In a world that is hopelessly addicted to the compulsion of talking, silence is the ultimate, non-confrontational dominance. Machiavelli warned us with a chilling accuracy, "Never reveal all your thoughts, for it makes you predictable and vulnerable." The precise moment people believe they can successfully read your emotional state, they can calculate your entire range of potential reactions. And the person who can successfully predict you is the person who can effortlessly control you. Silence renders you completely unreadable. It constructs a profound, almost mystical atmosphere of mystery around your presence that forcefully compels others to second-guess their own motives and assumptions. The man who remains quiet, calm, and poised in the center of the room will always command infinitely more intrinsic power than the loud, frantic voice shouting for attention. In the study of dark psychology, silence is not an empty void. It is a high-level, multifaceted strategy. It instantly shifts the critical balance of control in a conversation without requiring any actual confrontation. When you strategically choose to say nothing, you create the vacuum that forces others to reveal everything about themselves. They will expose their own crippling insecurities, their true motives, and their fatal weaknesses in their desperate, nervous attempt to successfully understand you. The truly ruthless exploit this truth to their immense advantage. They make the choice to listen with surgical precision more than they speak. They choose to observe with detached, analytical focus more than they explain, and they choose to act with decisive finality more than they promise or boast. The weak, the amateurs, rush into the battle to prove their minor point. The strong, the masters, patiently wait for the single, perfect, and most lethal moment to strike. Every intentional pause you introduce into a tense conversation measurably increases your perceived authority. Every time you permit others to nervously fill the uncomfortable silence, they are unknowingly surrendering invaluable tactical information to you. Machiavelli understood that power is not built on truth, it thrives on perception. The less the masses know about your true intentions, the more profound their fear of your potential becomes. Silence is a deliberate generator of psychological tension. It actively compels others to project their own deepest, darkest fears onto your mysterious, unreadable persona. They will begin to frantically wonder what you are truly thinking, what terrifying move you might make next. And that carefully cultivated uncertainty grants you an invisible, comprehensive control. This is why the silence you wield is not a mere absence. It is a profound, concentrated presence magnified. You have no need to frantically shout to successfully be heard. Your iron-willed emotional restraint speaks with an authority that entirely eclipses chaos. The loudest person in any room rarely possesses genuine power. They merely expose the depth of their craving for it. But the silent man already possesses the power. It is an internal, non-transferable asset. The great rulers of history grasped this chilling truth. The less you choose to reveal about your true self, the more the public imagination will conjure a formidable image. The more they are forced to imagine your capability, the more readily they will obey your quiet will. Your mandate is to learn how to weaponize your calm, to purposefully utilize silence as your only true language. When a fool attempts to insult or provoke you, maintain your absolute silence and simply watch them unravel in the pathetic, self-inflicted prison of their own guilt and desperation. When a manipulator attempts to provoke a reaction, give them nothing, a complete vacuum, and allow their desperation to fully expose their weak hand. Your disciplined silence will resound louder and carry more weight than any frantic argument you could possibly invent. People are psychologically conditioned to expect noise. They are existentially afraid of stillness. In that stillness, control resides. Machiavelli's counsel holds true. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The fool's automatic response is to defend himself with an avalanche of words. The wise man's immediate response is to guard his entire being with a fortified quiet. The second you cease the act of explaining, you execute a profound psychological shift from an emotional, reactive state to a strategic, analytical one. You stop playing a desperate game of defense and begin the process of commanding the entire game. Power does not beg anyone to understand its rationale. It simply demands to be felt, to be experienced. Silence renders you unpredictable, and unpredictability, correctly deployed, breeds an instant, profound respect. When you learn the ultimate discipline of holding your tongue, you have simultaneously learned the discipline of holding all of your power. And in a world choked by the desperate clamor of those who merely want to be heard, the one who truly masters the art of silence becomes psychologically and strategically impossible to defeat. Drop the declaration that signifies your new internal posture. My silence controls chaos. Number 7. Never show full loyalty. The strategic alignment. Loyalty is not a virtue that is to be given indiscriminately. It is a tactical weapon that is only effective when it is selective, carefully calculated, and strategically deployed. The fatal moment you choose to surrender your loyalty blindly, without the accompanying cold calculation, is the very moment it morphs from a virtue into your absolute cage. Machiavelli warned repeatedly that men are fundamentally ungrateful, fickle, and prone to deceit. Therefore, to operate with the expectation of a pure, unconditional loyalty is to actively, naively invite your own devastating betrayal. Power belongs exclusively to those who possess the strategic acumen to know the exact moment to enter into an alliance and the precise moment to cleanly, decisively withdraw from it. The world is not propelled forward by the gentle, wishful force of goodness. It is ruthlessly driven by the cold, unwavering logic of strategy. When you broadcast an unconditional, absolute loyalty to any external entity, be it a friend, a mentor, or a powerful leader, you are, without fail, surrendering your internal independence. They will begin, over time, to view your devotion not as a noble virtue, but as a fatal, exploitable weakness. The unilaterally loyal person is psychologically predictable, and in the high-stakes game of power, predictability is instant death. Dark psychology mandates that your display of loyalty must be a carefully calculated act, never, under any circumstances, a spontaneous, emotional one. True Machiavellian loyalty is intrinsically conditional. It is a strategic tool whose sole purpose is to serve your personal growth, your uncompromised protection, and your ambitious, necessary rise to power. The moment that loyalty ceases to fulfill those three vital purposes, it must be immediately and unsentimentally reevaluated and adjusted. The overwhelming majority of people remain blindly loyal because they are psychologically paralyzed by fear. The fear of being isolated, the fear of being unfairly labeled untrustworthy, or the pervasive fear of losing a source of approval. But these are, predictably, the same individuals who inevitably end up being ruthlessly discarded, profoundly betrayed, or easily replaced the instant their utility runs dry. The truly powerful never attach their strategic fortunes to the person. They attach their efforts exclusively to the opportunity that person represents. They possess the cold, unblinking awareness that alliances, like the tides of the ocean, are constantly shifting. They do not attempt to resist this fundamental truth. They learn how to master the skill of riding the tide. Your public display of loyalty should be wielded like a carefully constructed mask, never mistaken for your core identity. You wear the mask when the appearance of allegiance benefits your overarching strategy, and you remove it without hesitation the precise moment it becomes a liability to your personal power. This necessary perspective is not cruelty. It is the brutal, life-saving discipline of realism. The world, at its core, rewards those who think strategically, not those who merely feel with sentimental abandon. Machiavelli taught a paramount rule. A wise man ought never to make himself depend wholly on one thing or one person. Dependence is the silent killer of autonomy, and autonomy is the unquestionable root of all dominance. Never, under any circumstances, reveal the true final location of your deepest allegiance. Let people be comfortable in the false belief that you are operating fully on their side, but remain absolutely sovereign and free within the fortress of your own mind. The illusion of absolute loyalty is, in all practical terms, infinitely more powerful and strategically useful than the unpredictable reality of loyalty itself. The illusion keeps your allies comfortable and psychologically off guard, while simultaneously ensuring that you remain fundamentally untouchable. In the grand theater of politics, business, and even personal relationships, this strategic ambivalence is the silent engine that builds empires. Kings fall into ruin because they allowed themselves to trust too deeply. Subordinates are systematically eliminated because they allowed themselves to serve too faithfully. Friends turn into enemies because they wrongly expected a permanent equality in a world where hierarchy is the rule. When your loyalty is too readily available, too abundant, and too transparent, people stop respecting your intrinsic value. They will inevitably begin to test your boundaries. They will mercilessly exploit the vulnerability of your devotion, and most crucially, they will cease to fear the devastating consequences of your strategic withdrawal. Fear is the primary mechanism that maintains order and respect. When people possess the chilling, certain knowledge that you are fully capable of walking away from them without the slightest hesitation, they will begin to treat your allegiance not as a guaranteed constant, but as an earned, fleeting privilege. That, and only that, is how you command genuine, unwavering respect. You must master the discipline of granting your loyalty like a finely crafted sword, sharp, deliberate, and exclusively utilized when the cut is decisively in your own favor. Never, ever bestow your loyalty as a gift. Gifts are quickly, easily forgotten, but a strategic weapon is permanently remembered for its destructive potential. This ruthless mindset cultivates a powerful, psychological unpredictability in your persona, which is the ultimate, non-transferable advantage. They are incapable of successfully manipulating someone whom they cannot successfully define or categorize. And that, in its essence, is the totality of Machiavellian power: to remain a pervasive, unsettling mystery in plain sight, to maintain the appearance of loyalty while remaining absolutely sovereign in your internal reality. The soft, sentimental world will inevitably condemn this calculated mindset as cold or heartless, but these are the predictable words of the permanently powerless, the same broken individuals who continue to worship the empty shells of those who have already betrayed them. Engrave this fundamental truth into your operating ethos. Loyalty without an accompanying strategy is a profound, actionable act of self-betrayal. You owe nothing in the final analysis to anyone who would not willingly bleed for the certainty of your survival. Your sole, unwavering allegiance must always be permanently fixed upon your personal, grand purpose, not upon the transient people who merely come and go along the path of your ascent. Number 8. Become untouchable, the final evolution of sovereignty. Becoming untouchable is the culminating, final evolution of personal power. It is the absolute, unshakable state where no external insult, no deep-seated betrayal, and no sophisticated manipulation can, for even a fraction of a second, breach the fortress of your psychological armor. This transcendental state is not a posture of cruelty or an act of blatant arrogance. It is the ultimate achievement of complete sovereignty over the entirety of yourself. The external world, with its inherent chaotic energy, will never cease to throw disorder at your life. People will never stop testing the very limits of your profound patience. And circumstances, in their vast indifference, will never ever bend to the specific desires of your will. The weak will inevitably break, the fearful will constantly react and retreat, and the unprepared will crumble into dust. But the untouchable man, he moves through the volatile battlefield of life like a silent, implacable shadow. He is entirely unaffected by the noise, unshakably composed, and fundamentally unowned by any external influence. Machiavelli, recognizing the zenith of human self-mastery, decreed, "He who is wise will be master of himself, for he who is mastered by others is never free." True existential freedom is not a political right. It is the earned, internal reward of inner mastery. To successfully become untouchable, you must systematically cease the desperate, debilitating chase for love, for validation, and for external approval. These are nothing more than psychological illusions, the comfortable, predictable traps that perpetually tether your autonomy to the chaotic, transient whims of other people. The world, in its deepest, most unsentimental assessment, does not reward cheap kindness, nor does it honor simple virtue. It only respects the non-negotiable force of power, the discipline of self-possession, and the strategic force of relentless clarity. When you surgically remove your reliance on others to feed your fragile ego, you instantly begin the process of reclaiming all of your previously wasted energy. That reclaimed energy immediately transforms into an impenetrable fortress, shielding your inner world from the corrosive effects of manipulation, deceit, and distraction. The untouchable man is not a product of luck. He meticulously builds himself with deliberate, disciplined effort. He invests his limited time and resources into mastering strategic skills, cultivating an unyielding discipline, and refining his grand strategy, rather than squandering it on the acquisition of superficial approval. He cultivates an unshakable patience, a commanding presence, and a quiet, profound confidence. His reputation is not built on the futile noise of boasts, but on the undeniable force of consistency and an invisible felt authority. Dark psychology is clear. People are existentially terrified of that which they cannot successfully control. Once you strategically detach yourself from the crippling expectation of others, from the need to emotionally react, and from the pervasive, deep-seated need to be understood or loved, you ascend into the state of a psychological enigma. No one can successfully predict your moves. No one can find the emotional strings to pull on your mind. You have surgically and permanently removed all of their levers. The untouchable entity does not act from the place of raw, volatile emotion. He acts exclusively from a place of cold, analytical strategy. His anger, when displayed, is precisely measured. His fear is, for all practical purposes, entirely irrelevant, and his deepest desires are rigorously disciplined. Every single reaction he permits is entirely intentional. Every moment of silence he employs is deeply meaningful. You become the stable axis around which all external chaos helplessly spins, unmoved by the powerful storms that succeed in collapsing others. Machiavelli's definitive edict, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both," is not an advocacy for petty terror. It is a demand for unshakable presence, for internal control, and for the universal, chilling awareness that crossing your path will always, without exception, carry a demonstrable cost. Untouchability is the silent, felt ability to force people to hesitate for a profound moment before they even consider testing your boundaries. It is the quiet, final declaration that you are no longer psychologically accessible for the self-serving exploitation of others. No betrayal, no petty insult, and no manipulative tactic can successfully unsettle you because you have achieved a final, profound completeness within yourself. You are no longer a fragile reflection of other people's superficial opinions. You are the definitive sum of your own unwavering strategy and your relentless willpower. To ascend to this final, rarefied stage, you must consciously shed the last, clinging remnants of emotional dependence. The self-sabotaging need to endlessly justify yourself, the toxic need to forgive the unforgivable, the persistent, draining need to be recognized and applauded. You must rise permanently above all limiting attachments, all corrosive resentment, and all longings for what is gone. The untouchable man does not flinch in the face of adversity because he fundamentally understands the utter impermanence of all external validation. His entire self is anchored to the strength of his own being, and that internal anchor cannot be uprooted by any circumstance or external force. When you attain this final level, the force of your power becomes effortless. People sense it without a conscious thought, instinctively. They will either immediately respect it or they will deeply fear it, but under no circumstances can they afford to ignore it. You cease to be a mere participant in the cheap manipulations of others. You become the standard by which all influence and control in the room are measured. You move through the world in an unassailable state of untouchability because you have, at long last, mastered the only thing that ever truly mattered, yourself. Drop this final, unwavering affirmation into the comments below. Nothing can break me. The world, with its indifference, will continue its relentless attempts to break you. It will constantly test the limits of your newfound patience. It will invariably betray your trust in new and surprising ways, and it will punish the unstrategic remnants of your kindness. It will hammer home the unyielding truth that fairness is nothing more than a childish myth, that people are fundamentally unpredictable, and that the single, most reliable entity you can ever count on is the ruthless man you are now forging yourself to be. For far too long, you have permitted the outside world to dictate the terms of your internal peace. You have carelessly given your energy to the unworthy. You have begged for understanding from the willfully ignorant. And you have permitted corrosive attachment to chain you to an endless cycle of disappointment. But that self-sabotaging era ends now, today. You now possess the comprehensive Machiavellian blueprint to become a being whom no one can successfully manipulate, whom no one can financially or emotionally exploit, and whom no one can ever truly touch. You have fully integrated the discipline of ceasing to give your essence to the ungrateful. You have successfully turned your deep-seated pain into pure strategic power. You have surgically killed the crippling need to be understood, detached yourself from everything that sought to drain your will, and fortified yourself with the strength of unbreakable boundaries. You have mastered the lethal language of silence. You command respect through an unshakable calm. You wield loyalty with strategic, cold precision, and you have ascended into a state of the truly untouchable. None of this transformative power is a matter of luck. None of this final mastery is easy or comfortable. But every singular step you continue to take in this uncompromising direction simultaneously strips the outside world of its final leverage over your existence. Machiavelli's counsel rings true and final. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. Today you are making the unambiguous choice of wisdom. You are making the choice of absolute control. You are making the choice of ruthlessness, wielded in its most disciplined, silent, and powerfully strategic sense. This is the final evolved version of you that the world can no longer bend to its will, that it can no longer manipulate for its convenience, and that it can never, ever break. The path of the sovereign will not be simple, and there will be unavoidable challenges. But every trial you face now becomes a new, refined tool in your arsenal. Every betrayal is a high-value, unforgettable lesson. Every obstacle is a fresh opportunity to demonstrate, without words, that you are permanently unavailable for any further exploitation. The truly untouchable are not born. They are forged, hardened in the hottest fire of self-suffering. They are sharpened by the relentless pursuit of strategy, and they are eternally protected by the unyielding armor of self-mastery. Stand absolutely firm in this new, terrifying truth. Walk through the remaining chapters of your life with an absolute clarity and a formidable composure. Become the sovereign man who moves without a single apology, who commands without the need for an announcement, who rises to his necessary height without begging for external permission. And as you embark on this solitary, powerful path, know this: the world will inevitably notice the profound difference in you, but it will only do so after you have fully become untouchable. If this guide has instilled a sense of value, a new, cold clarity within your purpose, then make sure to engage with it. Share this fundamental blueprint with someone who desperately needs to hear this truth, and subscribe for more strategies that are designed to make you stronger, infinitely smarter, and psychologically impossible to break. You are no longer the subservient version that bends for others' comfort. You are the version that rules. Drop your final, binding affirmation in the comments below. I am untouchable now.